The photograph was not supposed to be released. Nobody authorized it. Nobody planned it. It appeared on a single fan account shortly after midnight, taken from a distance outside Cedars-Sinai, grainy and imperfect and absolutely impossible to look away from. Shohei Ohtani. Walking toward the hospital entrance. 3 teammates flanking him, close, but not touching, the way people walk beside someone they are trying to protect without making it obvious that they are protecting him. And the limp. That was what stopped people. That was what made the image travel the way it did, from one account to 10,000 before anyone in the Dodgers organization could respond. Because it was not the subtle, manageable compensation of a man being cautious with a sore joint. It was visible. Pronounced. The gait of someone whose body was telling him something his mind had not yet fully accepted. By the time the Dodgers communications team was aware of the image, it had already been seen by hundreds of thousands of people. By the time the MRI results came back, everyone was already afraid of what they would say. The 3 teammates who accompanied Ohtani to the hospital were not randomly chosen. That matters. When a player of Ohtani's stature goes to a medical facility in the middle of the night following a game, the organization does not simply let it happen organically. There is coordination. There are decisions made about who goes, what is communicated publicly, and how the timeline is managed. The fact that 3 teammates made that drive, voluntarily, without being asked by the organization, showing up in the hospital waiting area and staying there through the hours when the imaging was being conducted and reviewed, said something that no official statement could have said more clearly. This was not a routine injury visit. This was not a precautionary measure. This was the kind of night where you don't leave someone alone. One of the 3 players spoke briefly to reporters on Friday morning, outside the facility, before the official results had been released. He didn't offer details. He didn't speculate about diagnosis or timeline. What he said was short and plainly delivered. He shouldn't have to be there alone, he said. None of us were going to let that happen. He went back inside before a follow-up question could be formed. The MRI results were released at 11:23 a.m. on Friday. Not through a press conference. Not through a statement read by a team official in front of cameras. Through a single page of formal medical language, distributed simultaneously to all credentialed media, with a brief note at the bottom indicating that Roberts and the GM would address questions at 1 p.m. People who cover sports medicine read the document in seconds. Their translations reached social media almost immediately. The injury was real. The damage was structural. The specifics, the precise terminology, the grading of the impact, the anatomical description of what the collision had done to a joint that had already been under management, landed with the particular weight of medical language that strips away all ambiguity and leaves only fact. Within minutes, the Dodgers fan base, which had spent the previous 18 hours in a state of collective, low-grade dread, arrived at something quieter and heavier than dread. Because dread at least contains uncertainty. What the MRI results contained was confirmation. Roberts saw the imaging before the results were released publicly. He had been at the facility earlier that morning. Not for a scheduled visit, the kind of unscheduled presence that tells you more about a person than any prepared statement ever could. He had come, according to a team source, to see the results with the medical staff before they were formalized. To understand exactly what had happened to his player's knee before he had to stand in front of cameras and talk about it. What he saw made him go quiet in a way that people in that room noticed. The bruising, as captured in the imaging, was extensive. Not metaphorically extensive. Clinically extensive, the kind of bruising that a radiologist notes in specific language, that a surgeon studies carefully, that a medical team photographs and documents and reviews from multiple angles because the full scope of it requires multiple angles to understand. Someone in that room, not Roberts, not the GM, not anyone who has been identified by name, said afterward, to a reporter they trusted, that when the imaging appeared on the screen, there was a moment where nobody spoke. Everyone just looked at it, the source said. And then someone said, quietly, he was playing on that. And nobody responded. Because what do you say to that? What do you say to the image of an injury that a person had been managing and competing through, hitting home runs through, pitching through, performing at a level that had the entire sport rearranging its vocabulary to describe, only to have a collision make visible everything that had been invisible? You don't say anything. You look at the image. And you feel something that doesn't have a clean name. Roberts arrived at the 1 p.m. press conference looking like a man who had been carrying something heavy since morning and had not yet found a place to set it down. He sat. He did not arrange his notes. He looked directly at the assembled reporters and started talking before the room had fully settled. The MRI results confirm a significant injury to Shohei's right knee, he said. The structural damage is real. The recovery timeline is being determined in consultation with specialists, and I will share that timeline as soon as it is confirmed. He paused. I want to say something before the questions start. Another pause. Longer. When I saw the imaging this morning, he stopped. He looked at the table briefly. Then back up. I've been managing players for a long time. I've seen a lot of injury reports. I've seen a lot of imaging. And when that came up on the screen this morning, my first reaction wasn't clinical. I was angry. And I was in awe. At the same time. Which is a difficult combination of things to feel. The room stayed quiet. Nobody interrupted. Angry because of how it happened. Because it was avoidable. Because the play that caused the acute injury should not have been made. His voice tightened slightly on that sentence. Not breaking. Tightening. The voice of a man being precise about his anger because precision is the only way he knows how to hold it. And in awe because of what that imaging told me about what he has been doing. What he has been competing through. What he has been refusing to let become the story. He shook his head once. He didn't want it to be the story. I think about that. He knew. He knew exactly what was happening in that knee, better than anyone, because he's the one living in that body. And he chose, every single day, to walk to the plate and to take the mound and to be what this team needed him to be. Roberts put both hands flat on the table. When I saw him limping into that facility last night, he stopped. Something moved across his face that was not quite containable. He let it pass before continuing. That image is going to stay with me for a while. The GM spoke next. His voice carried the register of someone who had been in communication with lawyers and specialists and league officials since the previous evening and had arrived at the press conference with very little left in reserve. He confirmed the ban. Not a suggestion. Not a recommendation. A strict, formal restriction, effective immediately, issued by the organization in consultation with the medical team. Ohtani was prohibited from any baseball activity until the specialist consultation was complete and a recovery protocol had been formally established. This is not a discussion, the GM said. This is not something where we present options and let Shohei decide. I want to be direct about that, because I know how he thinks, and I know what his instinct is going to be. A reporter asked, has Ohtani been told about the ban? Yes. And his reaction? The GM allowed himself a very small, very tired almost smile. He did not love it, he said. The room produced a brief, low sound, not quite laughter, but the cousin of it. The kind of response that emerges when something is genuinely unsurprising and genuinely painful at the same time. He understood it, the GM added. That's the important part. He understood the reasoning. He's a professional, and more than that, he's intelligent, and he can follow the medical logic even when it's not the answer he wants. The almost smile faded. But no. He did not love it. The teammates who had waited at the hospital through the night had gone home by morning. Most of them arrived at the facility for the team's scheduled workout, which proceeded as planned, the kind of disciplined normalcy that professional organizations maintain not because normalcy is possible after a night like that one, but because routine is one of the only tools available when everything else feels uncertain. Reports from inside the workout described the atmosphere as focused. Quiet in a purposeful way. The way a group of people behaves when they have collectively decided that the only productive response to helplessness is effort. One player, when asked by a reporter at the facility's entrance how the team was feeling, thought for a moment before answering. "You know what Shohei would want us to do," he said. "So that's what we're doing." That was all. He went back inside. The specialist consultation was scheduled for Friday afternoon. The formal recovery timeline was expected by end of day. Whatever that timeline contains, whatever number of weeks or months it produces, whatever it means for the season and for October and for the larger, ongoing story of what Shohei Ohtani is doing in a Dodgers uniform, it will land into a context that has been permanently altered by a Friday morning press conference in Los Angeles. Because before Friday, the story of Ohtani's season was about greatness. About numbers that didn't make sense. About a player operating at a level that required new language to describe. After Friday, the story of Ohtani's season is still about greatness. But now it is also about the image on a medical screen that made a room full of professionals go silent. About a limp captured in a grainy photograph outside a hospital after midnight. About a manager who said he felt angry and in awe at the same time and could not find a way to choose between them. About a man who, when his pitching coach told him the team had it covered, stayed on the bench when every instinct he had was pulling him somewhere else. Who said he wasn't finished. Who, even now, almost certainly still believes that.